This is Creating Your Encore Career and Becoming a Silver Entrepreneur with your host, Lynn Freest. Lynn will share ideas and expert advice from people that are walking in your shoes and living their encore careers, where they want and at the pace they want. You'll start a company of one with confidence and knowledge to live a fulfilled life of freedom and ease. Lynn is a coach and leadership consultant whose mission is to show senior leaders and experts how to start something refreshing and new after a full career in the corporate environment.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the podcast, Creating Your Encore Career and Becoming a Silver Entrepreneur. Thanks for listening. Today's episode is How LinkedIn Can Boost Your Encore Career, and it's a conversation with Daniel Alfon. With an encore career, the rewards are great. You can work when you want, where you want, and you can do the work you love. So to get off to a powerful start, please contact me. On this episode, we're talking with Daniel Alfon, who's an expert on using LinkedIn to gain leads and just improve your professional life. And links to his website and his book, Build a LinkedIn Profile for Business Success, will be available in the show notes. Daniel joined LinkedIn early in 2004 and has published many articles and exclusive content about advanced LinkedIn strategies for people. He helps business owners leverage their LinkedIn presence to get leads and to connect with others. So here are a few of the ideas we'll talk about today. He'll share with us some of the myths about LinkedIn and how you use it. He'll talk about key things that your profile needs, and a few things about being sure you're present on mobile for LinkedIn, and many other things. Let's get into the episode. Welcome, Daniel, and I appreciate your opportunity to speak with you today. And I thought we'd just jump right into things right away. You have some real perspectives on LinkedIn and how it might apply to people who wish to start an encore career. So what are some opening thoughts you have on that?
Thank you very much, Lynn. I'm glad to be with you. And the short answer is LinkedIn can be what you want it to be, whether you're 40 or 65.
I think you've also said there's some things that we've all, especially my audience, we've probably considered LinkedIn more of a job search, or we've considered it a particular way. And I think you have some interesting, different things that you'd like to talk about as to how to use LinkedIn.
Let me say this. If you're an employee looking for a position, then LinkedIn certainly should be viewed as a job board and as a place to post your resume or your CV. But if you're looking for something else, if you're looking to be a solopreneur or work as a consultant, then it doesn't make sense. And what would make sense is for you to consider LinkedIn as a platform, as a website that needs to bring you business. And the three simple questions would be, who's your ideal reader on LinkedIn? What action would you like those people to perform if they visit your profile? And are you making it as easy and seamless and frictionless as possible for them to understand immediately that you're part of the solution to their problem?
So you would not probably recommend then when we lead off with a list of our accomplishments and jobs, or we'd use that portion of LinkedIn a little differently maybe?
Yes, because as if I want to work with you, then it's less relevant for me whether you worked at John Deere until 2014 or 2015. But what you did and how this can contribute to what you can offer your clients now, that certainly makes sense. And by visiting your profile, we have a good example. We have a banner, and 99% of LinkedIn users have an Apple with a banner. So this is a very simple way, free way to stand out. Think about the business or the client you'd like to attract and have a stunning visual that will make them instantly grasp why they need to read a bit more about you. The banner cannot make them understand everything. But as soon as you have a banner, most people will stay longer on your profile and you have a better chance of actually converting them into visiting your profile or reaching out.
What are then some of the next steps or the myths that we probably all have about how you use LinkedIn?
Yes, I'd love to go over a few of them. Initially, especially if you worked for corporate America, then the company page on LinkedIn, you used to think of it as a very important part of your marketing strategy. But if you're an individual, if you're starting out, then the company page is meaningless. And what you should focus on is your individual profile. Simply because most people do not follow company pages. They're the employees of the company. follow the page. But if you're starting out as a consultant, then forget about the company page, set it up, and I have a look at it every 6 months. The day-to-day lead generation will happen through your individual profile. That's number one. Should we move into number two?
Sure.
Cool. So second misconception is often about your network, the quantity or the importance of quantity or exposure versus the importance of quality and trust. And many people are hearing all the time that they need to grow their network without understanding that when someone reaches out to them, if someone can recommend your services, then this can bring you meaningful business. My consultancy is built on referrals. Referrals are come almost pre-sold. They have less of a price issue, and they tend to stay with me longer and send me other referrals later on. So this, for me and for many consultants, is a very significant way to build their business. But this is based on the assumption that people you're connected with. Because if I look at your profile and I see John Doe and Jane Doe, and one of them is a customer that has only good things to say about you, and the second doesn't know you from anyone else, then you will not be there to say, hey, have a look at this person and ask Jane, because the other people don't really know. Just like your profile needs to speak for itself, your connections need to speak for themselves. And if I reach out to someone and he says, yes, you need to speak with Lynn, then you've earned that trust.
Okay.
And probably the worst thing to do would be to try and aim for both, because you can't. They're mutually exclusive. If you want quantity, then you can no longer know your network. And if you want quality, you cannot have a large network.
Okay, that's great. And now one thing I've noticed just in my work is that I get a lot of requests for connections from people who are marketers, want me to market as a coach or whatever. So how would you suggest responding to things like that as you're trying to grow your network?
I would focus on growing your business and not growing your network.
Okay.
I know you meant the same thing, but it's not necessarily all the time the same thing. So let me say I got an invitation for a marketer or someone I don't know. There's a way for you to reply to that invitation without accepting it. And Lynn, what could we say? We can thank you very much, Jane, for requesting to connect. I see that you're with ABC. Could I be of help? Thanks. If the person replies and you start a meaningful conversation, then maybe you'll have a Zoom call. Maybe you'll jump on a virtual call, a coffee, and you'll actually have something meaningful with that person. But simply accepting the invitation, thinking that something will happen afterwards, often we cringe because we know that the second we accept such invitations, we're bound to get a pitch within 45 seconds of a product we would never dream we ever wanted.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You don't have to accept.
Yeah. And sometimes I think, at least in my case, that with that idea of you need a bigger network, the intent there is maybe I have to accept, but then realizing that these people aren't necessarily my customers. They want me to be their customer instead.
Absolutely. I'd like to bring another concept that's very important if you come from a business perspective. There's a whole range of LinkedIn metrics. Those represent the number of connections you may have, the number of views your posts have, the page followers, your SSI score, the endorsements, all sorts of LinkedIn metrics. They live only within LinkedIn. And there's the business metrics, the bank metrics, the financial metrics, revenues, new orders, and those. So my advice for anyone starting a silver career or an encore career would be to focus on the business metrics and forget about the LinkedIn metrics. Because these, between you and me, these are vanity metrics. At the end of the day, you don't say, wow, I have a gazillion connections. You say, I increased this quarter enabled me to increase my revenues by 25% because of activities I've done on LinkedIn or any other tool. And if that's the case, then LinkedIn should be really a black box. If it feeds your marketing, if it brings you new inquiries, if you can translate the business activity into business, then you're doing something good. Mm-hmm. But if the metrics that are growing are only the LinkedIn metrics, you still have a problem.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. That's a great way to look at it.
There were two more myths we could mention if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Cool. We mentioned some myths. Let me go over maybe two more. We mentioned the profile. It's more important than the company page. and the quality of our network that is more important often than the quantity of our connections.
Mhm.
The point I'd like to make is about content versus advertising and time versus money. Content is the engine that will grow your business on LinkedIn. And the sort of content I found to work best on the platform is top of funnel, educational, evergreen content.
Okay.
So say I left the corporate world after 20 years of being a consultant in a tech company. And now I offer services to companies that would hire. So I would ask myself, what sort of questions are my prospect struggling with? And could I either create, produce, or curate content that focuses on their real life needs and their real life questions? And Lynn, if we manage to help them by even rephrasing one of those questions or even providing them with a baby step that would move them from point A to point B, then we earn the right for them to say, okay, I see that there's a lot more behind this. What would be the next logical step? And that could be a discovery call or gated content or having some more meaningful or paid relationship after you provided them with value that let them understand that there's a whole more it could help them with. So the sort of content that would work is not salesy content.
Mhm.
It's really educational content. They may think about one option, but you can show them 3 or 4 options. And if your option is the 5th, then you would also mention it, but it wouldn't be a happy hour content. It would be, these are the pros and the advantages of that method. This is best if you're starting out. This is best if your existing system is ABC. And if you're not happy with this and that, then this is what I specialize. This is why I chose it. This is this sort of testimonials that my clients mentioned. If this sounds interesting to you, I'll be glad to hear from you. And maybe, yep.
I was just going to say, yeah, one of the things I found is I started out thinking I have to give people big answers. And I found out later that no, a lot of them were just asking for the first answer. So I don't have to create this epic piece of content. I really just have to start answering some of the first questions they have.
It's a great take. And maybe you could still create that epic content, but you could take that epic content and repurpose it across 20 different ways, and it would bring value to 20x people. Because simply just on LinkedIn, just to mention that platform, instead of harassing our own connections, and those are not, in some cases, they're not our audience, then what you could do is find groups on LinkedIn and share that valuable piece of content for a piece of the epic content that you created in that group. Most of the members of those groups are not your connections. They will discover your content for the first time, and they could convert by visiting your website and saying, maybe we could work with you. Mm-hmm. So repurposing, having more eyeballs driven to this piece of content is much easier than producing content. Producing content is time consuming and it takes a lot of effort, but sharing it or repurposing it in a meaningful way is a lot easier.
Great. What was your next one then that you had?
Thank you. The last one I wanted to mention was time and money. You don't have to pay for a LinkedIn premium account before you really know the platform. And in many cases, you don't have to pay at all. I've worked with LinkedIn for a decade. It was the primary source of my revenues, and I didn't have a paying account simply because I wanted to stay and to understand how most people would use the platform. And the thing is that if you only started out on LinkedIn now and you paid for a premium account, you could not be appreciative of what you got because there was no time when you saw the difference between the regular accounts and the premium account. And the regular platform is so rich, so counterintuitive, and so vast that a great chunk of LinkedIn users haven't discovered more than 5% of the platform. And we're talking about a platform that has over 800 million users. And Lynn, since you hit record, 3 people sign up every second.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Daniel, you've shared some great insights here, but I'd also like to hear about your journey because, again, you've made a journey that some of my audience is probably wishing to make, maybe not specifically to teaching LinkedIn, but you've had your own journey.
Don't we all? Of course, yes. I got my LinkedIn invitation back in 2004. And the moment I really appreciated or understood what I got was 2 years later when I held the quota carrying position. And the first 2 or 3 months were disastrous. Until one evening, LinkedIn showed me the name of the person I needed to reach out to. And maybe you could appreciate it because today it's a lot different. Back then, a third of our time was dedicated to find the right person within the organization that we needed to speak with. And LinkedIn has simply slashed this, enabled me to close more sales. And when I beat my quota, I said, okay, this is something interesting. I need to get a little, see what's under the hood and see if it can help me and my team. And then friends started asking me to train their sales force. And at one point you wake up and you say, okay, this is what I'm doing. Maybe I should drop everything else and write a book and maybe you'll get on to speak with Lynn one day. So that was my journey.
Oh, great. It's, again, I think each of us have unique journeys, and I've shared some of them with the audience from other people. So I appreciate that. And the other thing that's interesting, thinking back to what you've said here, is that my LinkedIn profile, I'm now trying to not reach out to hiring managers. I'm trying to reach out to people who need my services. And so that, again, just in what you've reflected here, I appreciate that. I'm looking at something differently than maybe I would have in the past for LinkedIn.
See the parallels between this and driving a car. So you could take a car and at one point you wanted your journey, I needed to go to Chicago and some other time you wanted to drive elsewhere. The tool may be the same. The car, the engine or the speed may be the same, but as long as you know where you'd like to head to, the possibilities that the platform offers you are almost endless. You simply need to switch your way of thinking about it. Forget about what other people do and simply ask yourself, am I doing what's popular or am I doing what's right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you stick to what's right, that you need to grow your business, and LinkedIn has to offer prospects the ability to understand what you bring to the table. So try to use the keywords that the prospect would use, because often so much about your expertise that the terms you would use are not necessarily the ones that novices would use. And another simple way to do it is to ask someone to look you up on LinkedIn, and ideally someone you're not connected with, and ask that person to share with you what they would do, what they would think when they look at your profile. Would they click? Would they tap? Would they scroll? And what do they understand by an encore career or a silver entrepreneur? And get their perspective about it, because the profile is not there for us. It's there to serve our ideal reader. And at one point, you may hear things that will surprise you and make you decide you would like to go back to the drawing board and polish some terms or add something, move parts to, say, from the about section. LinkedIn cut the about section after 3 lines. You've got an excellent about section. But my guess is that 90% of people have never really seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Not because of you, because LinkedIn at one point slashed the about section. So what we see is the question and then a sentence. And a lot of that text could be either copied or moved to the entrepreneur, executive coach, mentor. That is the first part of your experience. So looking at it from someone else's perspective would help you understand not the way you say it, but the way other people see it. And that's what counts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've run into that. And thank you for that insight, because it is true that while I've worked on this subject for a long time, other people are just getting started. So I'm not connecting with their first question on this. I'm talking about, I'm probably talking about me more than I'm talking about them in some cases.
But it's fine. It's if you can identify the first questions you get asked, then even reinforcing those questions or trying to get inside the mind of someone who asked those questions, if you can try to describe their pain point, like you've worked for a corporate for 20 years and now you're reaching the age where you'd like to do something meaningful. This could be A, B, and C. I can help you deal with this and that. And you would weave in the questions that they ask, always showing them the next baby step that would enable them to decide that that was the right path for them and see that it's feasible and may deal with the objections and the obstacles they may imagine. Some of them are real, some of them are in our minds. And showing them the journey you yourself have done could also help them understand that you're not talking from a theory standpoint. You've been there, you've done that, and it gives you more credibility and more trust.
Yep.
That's the highest currency, the most expensive currency there is there.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you. Now, one of the things in your book you mentioned, and I think it's even more prevalent today, is that the difference between LinkedIn on the desktop and LinkedIn on mobile and how people are using it. Because again, even since the publication of your book, I'm sure all of us have moved towards more mobile usage of whatever we do.
Thank you very much. So what I'll say this, it doesn't matter whether, Lynn, you and I are using the desktop. What matters is what is our viewer using. And we need to understand that the majority of LinkedIn users are using the app. So take a couple of minutes, download the app, try to play with it, and ask someone to look at your own profile, ask someone who you're not connected with to show you your profile. The profile looks a bit different. The banner looks different. It looks much better on desktop because the desktop screen is larger. So if people are using a banner that's complicated with lots of tiny text, then maybe the banner will not render as beautifully on a mobile. So you should design it for mobile, but also optimize it for desktop. If both users view what you wanted, then you're gold. It may take you a couple of more minutes to play with it and to add other elements to it and to experience it from both ends. But again, there's also another possibility. You only use the app and you've never used the desktop version. Again, it's not necessarily the right thing to do if a lot of people are checking you out via the LinkedIn desktop. Try to think of both, and being aware to it is half the way there. You see that you can serve both.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And, as I think of the audience there, that people have some expertise, they're hoping somebody will recognize that and connect with them. You mentioned earlier some of the ideas of how to open those conversations. Any further thoughts on, okay, somebody called me, said they're interested in maybe I'm an expert in ethics or something. How do you suggest opening the conversations with them when they've actually decided to reach out to you?
You would be amazed, but the simplest way to do it from my perspective would simply be to read their profile, the things they share, and to come to the conversation with 3 or 4 questions that would make them understand a lot about logistics. Simply, if you asked me whether I ship this, using this method or that method, that would make them understand your experience. And also you would be able to tailor the sort of service you'd like to offer them. Maybe they're looking for a part-time project where you could help them. They have a logistic nightmare because in 2 quarters, they have tons to ship and they have no one in-house to do it. So you would ask them a couple of questions before you say what the solution may be from your perspective. And that will make them want to work with you because you're designing the solution with them. You say, this is the situation, what is the problem, and what are the implications? And at the end, if you found a system that would help you achieve this and that, is that what you're looking for? Or have I missed something? Mm-hmm. And at that point, you're the only seller because you've never sold. You only ask questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's an interesting thing that I've shared with people is that you're an expert at something and you need to own that expertise, but also your success in terms of having an encore career is the ability to ask questions and really, really focus on what they're looking for as opposed to maybe leading with what you can do kind of a thing.
Real leadership is often being able to ask questions, to listen carefully to the answers. And in many cases, we think we know the answers from the word go. Mm-hmm. But even if we write, nobody likes that. So we need to make them part of the process. And if we manage to delay that by a couple of minutes, we've earned their trust. And now their ears are more open to us preaching what we wanted initially. And in some cases, we were wrong. We were wrong because the way they explained it, we immediately thought of solution A, But now, after asking a couple more questions, we understand that they use the term in a different way. And what the solution should be is actually something else. So it's worthwhile trying to delay our judgment and to delay the solution until we're really sure of what we do. That doesn't make us less of an expert.
Right.
It actually means that we're the top experts there are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, my work in executive coaching helps inform me on that, because often the stated problem is not the problem, but you have to have the patience to, as you said, ask a series of questions to help them articulate what their real problem may be. Yeah.
What made you want to launch this podcast and speak with all sorts of crazy people about silver entrepreneurs?
Well, it was a couple of things. One is, at my point, I was getting ready to leave the corporate world, and I still wanted to do something. So I wanted to repurpose myself. But as my tagline says, I wanted to work when I want and where I want, and just work on the things that I really am energized by. So that was part of it. And then, but then the second piece that sort of got me into this was looking at just the demographics, at least here in the U.S. and around the world, is that we're an aging society. And to the extent that people are discounting all the talent, or having the talent on the sidelines as we get older, is not useful to the economy as a whole. And so there's, again, earlier in my career, I consulted in manufacturing and a lot of medium and small size companies. They couldn't afford a lot of talent, but they could afford hours of talent for people. And so I was thinking, okay, this is another way that I could help, whether it be my peer group or other groups of people, stay in the economy, provide value, those kinds of things. So it was two-part. One, because of what I wanted to do, but also because of what I think the economy needs, or the world needs.
You're absolutely right. Recruiting is often led by people who have not a lot of experience in real life, and the company may hire 3 different people within a year because each left after 3 or 4 months, and bring someone that has more experience would bring more knowledge to stay within the company. And it's also a calmer approach to life that's often lacking in some companies. So thank you for this.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I really believe that, for example, we all hope to bring a more diverse set of talent into our companies. That talent needs some coaching, some education, some assistance to develop. And yet normally the leaders they're busy actually executing the company's work. And so to bring in also people that might be there part-time, but have some expertise, they can serve as excellent coaches to help develop the new talent, because often, especially if we're looking for talent in different areas, they're not coming in with the same background as maybe we had seen in the past. And so here people can help them as they hear about the background and of course, we've all made a lot of mistakes. If nothing else, we can help people understand the mistakes that can happen. I often remember when I was a young engineer and we were just getting into computers at the time, and I worked for a boss, and I was so proud of some of the things I was generating from the computer programs. And he said, I don't know, Lynn. He says, sometimes I think you're able to make bigger mistakes faster, So there's some of it that we still have to be able to learn from what we've done and share it with others.
You're an emotional intelligence certified coach, and you work with Daniel Goleman. Is this something that you see strengthening your wish to have more people participate in the workforce, or is this something that you're interested in without regard to the business aspect of it?
Well, I've always been interested in it. And so I probably got started in it because it was a topic that was of great interest to me. But then as I started working on myself and working with others, okay, that's a key skill that people in my audience, they have some, but they probably can enhance it, and they can certainly pass that on to people. Again, there's something to be said now. With age comes some experience, especially emotional intelligence type experience. I think that's, again, something that it may not naturally flow with every person, but it also does. It is possible to build on that. So that, again, we talked to you earlier about listening and asking questions. Sometimes people who are new or just new to a role, they haven't had that experience yet. Okay, I need to ask questions as opposed to proving myself. So again, I think the emotional intelligence skills are key to everything in life, but especially I think that's something we can add to if we're helping others develop.
Excellent. And based on your experience, what is the number one question that people contemplating an encore career or being silver entrepreneurs face?
It's probably, can I do it? Again, especially if we a lot of it has to roll around the idea of mindset. You spoke to that earlier, but the idea that, okay, I'm not my job title, I'm not my set of experiences necessarily, but there are key things, whether it be I know how to recover from a mistake or something like that. But the whole idea of I can help other people learn how to do these things. A lot of it's around mindset. And it's interesting. I encourage people to have a dichotomy. One, own your expertise and be willing to talk about it. But then two, have the mind of a learner. So whether it be new technologies you're learning or how to utilize emotional intelligence. So you really have to have both these things. People want to hire you because you know something, but two, you also need to believe in yourself and you need to be willing to make mistakes. Again, coming out of the corporate world, at least I was in manufacturing, we wanted to be 99% sure we were going to be right before we did something. Well, in this arena, while you want to be 99% of your solutions, the fact that you're building your business, you're probably going to you're not going to be right all the time for sure.
And when you mention it, I think about one way that anyone over 60, anyone who's worked within the corporate world for a decade or more, often those people have connected on LinkedIn with their colleagues, people they used to work with 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And often they disregard their network as if by leaving the company itself, they also left the relationships behind. Mm-hmm. And I would actually recommend them to rely on those relationships because the fact that you return the badge to the company or the equipment doesn't mean that your network must disappear. Those are people who could sometimes refer new clients to you or even become the very first clients. People you could try and make every mistake is costly, but it's best when it's a small project and then you understand the way you need to phrase it or price it or do it next time. And then you're able to scale with other companies and other opportunities. So don't neglect your network. The fact that you're a silver entrepreneur does not mean that you can no longer collaborate with those people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've certainly personally found that to be the case. I have people who have either retired but stayed active on LinkedIn, but they have their own networks. And so there's always, like you say, referral possibilities. But then also there are people I worked with that have joined other companies. And it's always been interesting to talk with them and see what their experience has been, not just when they transition, but also what's happening different in the company. And I think a lot of that it certainly informed me as to, I had an experience in one company for most of my career, but now I'm getting to share with people experiences that I've had with other companies. And I think that's a valuable growing opportunity also.
And again, just based on your LinkedIn profile, you moved places. You moved to Massachusetts, you moved to the Quad Cities, you were in Iowa, and you must have moved until selling in Illinois. Was that within the same company or was that business related, or did you enjoy those opportunities, or did you see this as something neutral?
I did enjoy those opportunities, and it was all within John Deere, but it was for different parts of the company. And so I got to see different areas of manufacturing, different groups of people. So while it was within the same company, it broadened my experience. Again, John Deere's a large company, so it was interesting growth opportunities in different ways while still staying in the company. But and even moving to different parts of the country, it was mainly within the Midwest, but there are differences there. And along with my love of recreational travel, I guess I'll say, it's just fascinating. And then after retirement now, I've worked with people internationally, and while we do this by Zoom and only in some cases we've never met face to face, I've got some wonderful friendships with people. And again, I think in today's world, while the Zoom was forced on a lot of people with the pandemic. It's proven to me anyway to say, gee, look what's possible. You can connect with people around the world and learn from them. And find out that many of our problems are quite similar, no matter where we are.
The farther you travel, the more you stay close to home.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, thank you again, Danielle. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience as far as your experience in general, how people might start their careers and using LinkedIn or anything else?
I enjoyed the conversation very much. I wish I could take the self-discovery quiz that you referred to on your LinkedIn profile, maybe before I ran into LinkedIn. And I think that if you're hesitating about the next career move, then listening to other episodes of that podcast, your podcast, will also help people learn from other people's mistakes. And I haven't said it here, so I'll just say it. I've made all the possible mistakes about LinkedIn, more than you can ever imagine. But because I did them early enough, I was able to rebound and build some kind of system. But I wouldn't be here if I didn't play with the platform, and you can learn from other people's mistakes and build the system that you would be proud of. So thank you very much for speaking with me today.
Thank you, Danielle, and I appreciate it. And I know my audience appreciates talking with you too. Best wishes, and maybe we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Lynn.
Many thanks again to Daniel on sharing his journey and the exciting work that he's doing. Again, in the show notes, we're going to have information about Daniel's website and his book, Build a LinkedIn Profile for Business Success. Remember, with an Encore career, the rewards are great. You can work when you want, where you want, and you can do the work you love. So to get off to a powerful start, please contact me. You have the time and attention and money to make this leap, so let me help you. Now, in the resources also is a quick guide to help you get started on your Encore journey. I encourage you to take this guide, look through it, reflect on the questions, and then we can talk. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.